Zante. Hey there guys, my name is Brandon from Gearist.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Fresh Foam Zante from New Balance. In February of 2014, I got the chance to review the first Fresh Foam shoe that came out of New Balance, and that was the New Balance Fresh Foam 980. The interesting thing about that shoe was that I actually really liked the ride, I liked what they were doing with it, but I thought the marketing was off. And I was not alone in thinking that. There were a lot of reviewers and people like me that really thought that the shoe's marketing, the science of soft, was way off the mark. So does that mean that it was a bad shoe? Not at all. In fact, I really enjoyed the ride. It was very responsive and a lot more poppy than I thought, but there was nothing about it that was really soft. Well, now in the Fresh Foam line, New Balance has launched the Fresh Foam Zante and the Boracay. Now the Boracay is actually what has become of the 980. We will be reviewing that very soon, so definitely check back for that. The Zante, on the other hand, is an entirely new shoe, and I've got to tell you, it's great. Now we won't be doing a ton of comparison to the 980 because again, that's going to be falling to the Boracay quite a bit. But there are some things that are really good to pull over and that we'll talk about relative to the first review we did of the Fresh Foam line and today's New Balance Zante. As always, the first thing we're going to touch on is the outsole. The great part about this shoe is its elegant simplicity, and that starts with the outsole. There's not a ton going on, as you can see here. It's a very solid pattern. There's nothing that is over the top. It's not lugged anywhere really, aside from this kind of series of lugs here. It's covered in a full contact, as you can see there, no cutaways in the medial or lateral arch. Full contact outsole, which gives you a really whip-quick transition. The material itself is a full contact blown rubber. Now, in the high traction areas, which kind of are right here on the midsole up into the forefoot, you can see that there's a little bit of kind of treading on those lugs. It's not a huge thing, but it's going to add a little bit more traction. When I started running in this, we still had some snow around, and in that snow, I did definitely have to stay on my toes, really making sure that I was landing right under myself. It was not a huge deal, not the greatest grip on the world and things like that. However, when it was wet outside, and God knows when it's dry, it grips just fine. From a durability perspective, you're going to see wear on this exactly where you land. And for me, you can see it's right there in the midsole or the midfoot leading up into the forefoot. The reason you're going to see this so clearly is because these are smooth-topped lugs. The treads are very smooth-topped. Even the ones with a little bit of tread on them are still relatively smooth-topped. So you're going to see exactly where you're landing. This is actually not only a great indicator of wear, but it's also a really cool learning tool should you want to improve how your foot lands on the ground. Now let's move on to the midsole, and this is one of the things that I was most excited about because I really liked the midsole and the ride of the original Fresh Foam 980, and I was hoping they didn't mess with it too much because that was really nice. Now, first thing I noticed out of the box is that right in the arch, kind of reminiscent of the Go Run, the Skechers Performance Go Run 3, is there's a bit of a midfoot bump. Upon running, just so you're not worried about this bump going to be in your arch the whole time, upon running, the bump almost immediately disappeared. I was unaware of it probably 30 seconds into my run. Not a big deal. What it does help to accomplish, however, is to enhance that very fast, smooth transition from the rear foot of the midfoot into the forefoot. I mean, it's seriously a very quick and very pleasant transition. I really liked it a lot, and it makes this thing feel so speedy. In fact, if I had to compare it to the smoothness of a shoe, the closest thing that I would come to is the Pearl Izumi Emotion line, which, as I've talked about before, is one of the smoothest transitions I've ever felt, and this is right there with it. Now, as with the original 980, they've still stuck with this kind of hexagon pattern where they're convex and concave portions of the midsole rather, depending on where you're going to impact the shoe. This thing really responds so well. I mean, you know, again, that simple elegance when it comes to this, there's not really a better way to describe it and tell you than to just put it on. We're going to get to that a little bit more in the ride section, but the simple elegance of the outsole and then into the midsole where there's just a single density of excellent EVA foam is just spectacular. Now moving into the upper, this is a dual layered mesh, which is not technically no-sew, but it's so smooth the transition that you really don't notice it. First off, the outside is very breathable, keeps debris out in an excellent way, and actually I think would be a great addition to a trail shoe. As we move to the interior, again, it's not no-sew construction, but it almost feels like it. And the reason for that is that the tongue gussets, which you can see right there, those actually don't connect to the traditional spots. The tongue gussets aren't connected to the side of the collar. They actually go into a second piece that actually forms this little booty type construction inside the shoe. And because this material has a little bit of stretch, it really hugs the foot so nicely, and it's just a really, really pleasant feel. The support structure on the upper is kind of a hybrid. Now that foam does a good job of keeping things in place, but then you've got these welded and bonded overlays right here. Then you've got a nice little toe bumper here. You can see the logo gets in on the action. Basically everything is really, really solidly held together, but it's not so overpowering that you're feeling like there's this structure around your foot, because again, that would take away from that booty construction combined with the little amount of stretch that is apparent in the upper. One of the things that bugged me about the original 980 was the amount of foam in the tongue and around the collar. In this, they have perfected it. It is dead spot on for me. I love the amount of foam here, and because it's nice and flexible, if you've got a sensitive Achilles area, this is going to give it a lot of slack. I mean, the heel counter comes up to about there, so you've got this much, a full inch up to the top, where it's really not going to aggravate the Achilles at all, and that understuff, not even understuff, but just perfectly stuffed foam is really, really a great change in this shoe. The upper of this shoe is really spectacular, and the stretch that you've got in the front two-thirds of the front third rather of the shoe, the speckled area, is really great and gives it a nice custom fit. Now, I'm not saying it's stretchy, I'm just saying it's got a little bit of stretch to it. Now, the first thing I'll say about the fit is that the sizing is spot on, and I cannot see where anybody would have to go up or down a half size, so you should be solid in the shoe size that you always wear. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, that stretch in the forefoot area really gives a nice custom feel to it. And one of the complaints that we had in the original Fresh Foam 980 was that pointy toe thing that New Balance seemed to be doing for a while there. They have completely remedied that in this. There's a ton of toe splay area. Again, because of that stretch, you can see this nice and spreads out with the foot. If your toes splay, there's tons of room for it. It's just really, really just perfect for me. I love it so much. Moving into the midfoot here, again, because of that booty construction, there is going to be some room for play for a wider foot or something like that, so you should let the laces out or whatever you need to do. Speaking of the laces, these are lay flat laces, which is really nice. It's going to keep things nice and not put like a hot spot where laces overlap or anything like that on your foot. And again, in the rear of the foot, the heel counter is not super rigid or anything, and it's mostly right kind of where this gray thing is. It's a little bit outside that, but that is basically where it is, and it forms a nice heel cup at the back of the shoe, because a lot of times when you feel super malleable uppers, what ends up happening is that you kind of feel like you're swimming. You're a little bit loosey-goosey in it. I didn't feel like this at all in this shoe, even when I was giving it things kind of running around corners really hard on purpose to make sure that, well, just basically to see if I would slip around in it. Now for the ride, I gotta tell you, not exaggerating whatsoever, I love the ride of this shoe. If I had to describe it in one word, apart from simple elegance, which is 2 words, but it would be bouncy. I mean, you really feel just very lively in the shoe, and because it's so flexible, you wouldn't necessarily think that, but it's just so lively. It's so just awesome to run in. I mean, this is really a spectacular shoe, and New Balance has done a great job here. I can honestly tell you that in the 40 miles that I've run in this, roughly 40 miles that I've run in this, a little bit over that, I've never had a bad experience, and I really like that. And you know, it's in this size 11, it comes in at 8.5 ounces. It's a nice and reasonably lightweight shoe, but it just runs a lot lighter than that because it just bounces. I mean, it's just so fantastic in the ride. If someone asked me what distance is appropriate for this shoe, I'd have a hard time pointing out a distance that's not appropriate for this shoe. I mean, because of its peppiness and its agility, you'd be great to run 5Ks in it, but you could easily take it to marathons and probably beyond. Of course, this is dependent upon your taste in cushioning and all that kind of stuff, but I really love it. I mean, it's just a spectacular ride. You know, earlier this year, actually in February of this year, 2015, some outlets named this shoe Shoe of the Year. And I was a little bit puzzled at that because I was like, how can you call a shoe Shoe of the Year after only 2 months of the year are over? But I have to admit that I'm going to eat some crow here. Now, I won't go so far as to call this our Shoe of the Year just yet. We're going to be doing that in July. But I have to tell you that if this is not our road shoe of the year, I'll be very, very surprised. And the final piece of the puzzle to that equation, what makes this so great, is that the price point is $99. You can get this shoe right here for $100. And actually, I think we may have it for less. Definitely check our buy links down in the description because we try to find the best deals for you guys. Honestly, I don't care if you're a new runner or a veteran runner, this is going to be a great shoe. We will have the Boracay review coming soon, so definitely be sure to check back for that because there are different aspects of that are going to cater to some other runners, we think. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and don't forget to like and favorite this video if you would, please. It would be so awesome if you would really, really appreciate it. it. If you've got questions about this review or any of our reviews or videos whatsoever, don't forget you can always leave those in the comments section of any of our videos and we'll get back to you. Also, you can email info@gearist.com. We'll be happy to talk to you that way. For those of you that have been shopping through our buy links, we really appreciate it. You can find those on Gearist.com or down in the description of this video. Anytime you buy through those, the prices are just the same as you pay elsewhere, but every time you do, we get a little percentage of that purchase from the outlet, whether that's Amazon or REI, what have you. It helps us out a lot. So thank you all so much for doing that. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media, which you can see right over here to my right, your left, including Facebook, Strava, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. It's over here on the right. And that button down on the bottom right there, that's our YouTube subscribe button. Please click on that and you'll be sure to get all of our updates as soon as they come out, including upcoming promotions and giveaways, which you don't want to miss out on. As always, visit Gearist.com, take a look around at all of our reviews and content. If you've got any questions about anything, feel free to leave a comment there or again, email info@Gearist.com. Thank you guys so much for spending a few minutes with us today, and we'll see you next time.